Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, February 19th, 2018. Happy President's Day to everybody. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. Patrick, what a very happy day for Ohio State yesterday. After starting 13-1 in the Big Ten, Buckeyes lost their second straight, lost at Michigan. It was a 2-point game it was a 5-point game at halftime when Kata hit that three, and I'm thinking, all right, they got the momentum going into halftime. Just was never able to get over the hump. I know a lot of people are now asking, a lot of fans, has Ohio State been exposed? I think we can overreact to some of these things. Let's keep in mind that Penn State was favored over Ohio State, slight favorite, but still was favored. Michigan was favored. So I know everybody's overreacting, but just curious to get your take on this. Do you feel like the Buckeyes have been exposed, or do you think this is more going to be like a blip on the radar?
I don't think they've been exposed. I think, you're seeing kind of a regression to the mean a little bit. Obviously, this team has well overachieved based on the preseason expectations. We've talked about what, the thought was for this team, predicted to finish 11th in the Big Ten and all that. And obviously they are a better team than that, but they probably aren't as good as the record shows. And, it was to be expected at some point that they would come back to earth a little bit. I also think that they're playing a pretty tough schedule right now. Coach Holtmann has talked about that quite a bit, that this final stretch was really going to test this team heading into the Big Ten tournament. Penn State's a team that he thought was a bad matchup for them going into the first game, and obviously they hit a lot of threes, but, they proved in the second game that that's true. And then Michigan is a team that obviously they don't match up great against either. You go back to the first game, yes, Ohio State won, but they were down 20 at one point in that game. Michigan does some things with some guard play, same as Penn State, that frustrates Ohio State, and I think that these last two games we've seen that. We knew coming into the year that the guard play was going to be an issue, and it's been better than we expected. C.J. Jackson, Andrew Dockich have both played above their heads, I think, at times this year, but they're going to face teams with bigger guards that cause them issues. When you have games where, Kata Bates-Diop isn't at his best, they're going to struggle a little bit at times with that. And, we've seen it here. 2 road games. It's hard to win in the Big Ten on the road. So I don't think it's necessarily a sign that this team, isn't good. This is still certainly a tournament team, deservedly so. But, certain teams are going to cause them issues, and we've seen 2 of those in the last few days.
Micah Potter was benched yesterday. Kyle Young, I like getting him out there, but, he was out there for, half the game. He played more than 20 minutes. And I know, Micah Potter wasn't hurt or anything. It was just my guess. I know we talked about this through text messages with a group text. My guess is they watched the film of the Penn State game, and Holtmann was so disgusted he just benched Micah Potter. Just your thoughts on Micah Potter. I feel like they need him going forward. They need some bench punch, and he's a guy that can provide that. Can we expect much out of Micah Potter going forward in your estimation?
I think so. I think, we'll talk to Chris Holtmann more about, this decision, but I think that they saw stuff that they liked from Kyle Young in the Penn State game. He was one of the few bright spots with what he was able to do off the bench, just the energy he gave, the effort. And that's what Micah Potter has brought a lot of times this season. He's a guy who's, not the best scoring, not the best defender all the time, but he'll bring you energy, he'll get you rebounds, and that's what Kyle Young was bringing. This is a young guy. Both guys are young, to be fair, but Kyle Young, a young guy that Chris Holtmann recruited at Butler, ended up flipping him to Ohio State when he made the jump here from Ohio, and I know he really likes the potential in the future. But we've seen this at times this year. There have been games where, some of these bench guys, Musa Jallow, Kyle Young, now Micah Potter, have either not played at all or played very few minutes. Musa Jallow only played yesterday 5 total minutes right at the end of the first half, and then when the Buckeyes got in foul trouble with Andre Wesson. So, Chris Holtmann's trying to find the best combination to work. I think at Penn State, he was grasping at straws when they were down really big to try and find something, and Kyle Young was a guy he found that he liked what he saw. So Kyle Young played 22 minutes. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that his career high in minutes before this game was against Michigan the first time they played too. So also could be a matchup thing that they see there that they like with Kyle Young coming in and taking those minutes from Micah Potter. But I agree with what you said. Micah Potter's a guy they need. He's their backup center. He can hit some threes. He can do some things for you. I think there's still a lot of development there, but in terms of a number 2 guy behind Caleb Wesson, a guy we know can get in foul trouble, you're going to need Micah Potter in the Big Ten tournament, in the NCAA tournament.
Switching gears to football, I want to look at maybe the biggest concerns we have for the 2018 Buckeyes. I'm going to throw out linebacker. I like Tough Borland in the middle, but looking at the outside linebacker spots, that's my biggest concern is the outside linebacker spots. And I do like Malik Harrison. I like his athletic ability and his toughness. He has things you just cannot teach. I do think he's going to end up being a good one, but he still needs to prove it. Dante Booker's coming back as a fifth-year senior. They have other guys that could plug in there. Maybe a Baron Browning could move to the outside. I know he's repped at middle linebacker. They have guys like Keandre Jones, maybe Justin Hilliard, a former five-star. Maybe the light will go on for him as a fourth-year junior. And we've seen they can move certain guys we think are just middle linebackers to outside, like I said with Baron Browning. Maybe guys that are outside linebackers they could move inside if they needed to. Maybe one of the true freshmen will step up, like Taraja Mitchell or somebody like that, or Dallas Gant. I know Dallas Gant's enrolled early, but still, they've got some talent there. They've got a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong, but that's still my biggest concern on the team is the linebacker position. Just your thoughts.
I think that is one to keep an eye on, and you mentioned a lot of names that can go in there. Pete Warner's another guy I know that they liked last year, but like you said, with a lot of these guys, it's going to be about proving they can do it in games and not just on the practice field. I think that's certainly a concern. I think a lot of this defense we're going to be looking at just in general as we get into spring ball here. Who's going to be the number one cornerback? We saw a lot of Kendall Sheffield and Damon Arnett behind Denzel Ward last year, but are either of those guys ready to be that number one shutdown guy that Denzel was? Or is it going to have to be a guy like Jeffrey Okudah who played when Denzel sat out the bowl game? What are they going to do at safety with Damon Webb gone? I think there's certainly question marks around this defense, even defensive end. How do you find depth that you've had the last few years? I mean, that's been so key in what they've done because they're able to rotate those guys in and stay fresh. Right now we're looking at Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and Jonathan Cooper as the three defensive ends, and then they're hoping other guys step up. Is that enough depth for Larry Johnson to continue to do what he wants? We know they'll be deep in the middle. I think a lot of these defensive positions, but I think linebacker is one where it was a weakness last year. I think we can safely say that. And you don't have guys you can put in and say, okay, these guys will for sure make it better. I think the defensive coaches have a lot of work to do to prove that these guys, whoever they're going to put out there, are ready to go, when we reach the fall.
Someone will say, what about offensive line? I want you to address that. I mean, Brady Taylor, if he's the center, or maybe it's somebody younger like Josh Myers, or there's talk it could be a true freshman, Matt Jones. I mean, I have a tough time imagining we're going to see a true freshman start again. But and overall, just on the offensive line, some of the other positions, having to get a new offensive tackle. If Isaiah Prince stays at right tackle, they're going to need a left tackle. If Isaiah Prince moves to left tackle, they're going to need a right tackle. Maybe that's Thayer Mumford. Brandon Bowen was injured last year, was playing good before that at right guard. How's he going to be? Just your overall thoughts on the offensive line. Do you view that as more of a strength entering this year or perhaps a concern? I
think it's somewhere in the middle. I think you have three guys coming back who started most of last year, and then you mentioned Brandon Bowen as well. So I think you've got guys that you are fairly comfortable with. You do miss a key piece with Billy Price leaving, not only as, replacing your center, but he was such a leader on that line, starting these last 4 years. And I think somebody has to step up. When I talked to him at the Fiesta Bowl, he was very confident that Brady Taylor would be that guy, not only to replace him as center, but be the leader of the offensive line. I do like the development of Isaiah Prince last year. I like Thayer Munford a lot, a kid I covered in high school. Good kid, and I think, he's ready to take that next step. But like I said with the linebackers, you've got to prove it. I do think, assuming that Bowen is healthy after, the leg injury last year, I do think that that's a big bonus to get him back, a guy with, I think 6 games of experience roughly. So that'll help quite a bit because, like you said, I think he was playing well. But, with a lot of these young guys, especially if they're going to rely on maybe some redshirt freshmen, true freshman type of things, at least in the 2 deep, there's certainly question marks there. And I think this spring will be a big, few months for these guys to really prove something. I know everyone's going to be looking at the quarterback position in offense and trying to figure out who's going to be the starter there, but just as important is getting this offensive line settled, not only so you know who's in there, but so they can begin to develop some chemistry and, have that line set going into the fall.
Great insights, as always, from Patrick Murphy. Thank you very much, Patrick, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.